The administration is under fire. The American people are outraged, and while all eyes are on the much-awaited plan to rescue American banks from their so-called toxic assets, the president, he's yucking it up.
Please welcome President Barack Obama.
We are fed up.
We got a gym right over there, up on the 3rd floor.
Give us the money back!
Pretty spectacular slings.
Thank you. Thanks for listening.
This is pretty cool.
Well, it's cool.
AIG!
Money that I had put away in retirement funds are gone.
I do think in Washington, it's a little bit like American Idol, except everybody is Simon Cowell.
Wow. Wow.
We've got to stop focusing on some of the publicity issues and focus on the real issue here.
Where's our money? It's not money.
The economy is something that he should focus on more than the brackets.
And enough is enough.
I personally think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Especially because they give you, the jacket with the seal on it.
Oh, yeah.
It's not money.
It's inappropriate for him to be here telling jokes with Jay Leno when the country is facing this financial crisis.
If you lose to Obama, you never hear the end of it.
I think people are desperate.
Main Street, not Wall Street.
I'm sick and tired of hearing the administration and Secretary of Treasury say, I just found out about it. That's not true.
Enough is enough. Make the economy work for us.
Ultimately, I'm responsible. I'm the President of the United States.
Now, the American people are looking for leadership, and instead they get this and tax cheat Geithner. And that is our headline this Monday night, day number 63 of change we've been waiting for. In whom do we trust? Now, Secretary Geithner finally introduced his bank rescue plan today and was greeted with a mixed reaction. Now, liberal Paul Krugman at the New York Times says that the plan leaves him in a state of despair. The blog, The Daily Kos, reportedly twittered today that Secretary Geithner is a liability to the administration like Donald Rumsfeld was to President Bush. Recognizing this and the growing credibility deficit plaguing the administration, the president has once again changed his tone from doom and gloom and malaise to positive, upbeat, and now to the comical. Now, Dick Morris will be here in a few minutes with a complete analysis of turbo tax cheat Tim Geithner's plan to solve the crisis he helped create. But when the administration tries to manipulate you, the American people, in such a calculated fashion, we're left with, that one glaring question. In whom do we trust? Should we trust? And joining us tonight with the answer to that question and an exclusive first look at his brand new book, I call him the great one, Mark Levin, author of the book just out today, Liberty and Tyranny, A Conservative Manifesto. Great one, how are you?
Brother, good to see you.
Why do I have to fight to get you on the television program? It's like pulling teeth to get you here.
How do I look?
You look great.
Is this HD TV?
Yeah, this is HD. As a matter of fact, it is. You look
Okay.
fantastic. We've got a lot to get to. Because not only are people mad and angry and afraid, but they also want solutions. You make the case in this book, you say that so distant is America today from the founding principles that it's difficult to precisely describe the nature of American government. And you make the case conservatism is the answer. Explain.
Conservatism is the only answer because we share our principles with the founding principles. We take our principles right out of the Declaration of Independence, right out of the Constitution. Where does the leftists, or as I call them, the statists, where do they take their principles? They're not out of the Declaration or the Constitution. These guys are winging it, and they're spending trillions of dollars winging it. They're empowering themselves. You saw Congress last week and this week. That is a mob. It is a mob, a frenzied mob. The founders would be absolutely appalled by this. My goal here is to help give a rebirth to the conservative movement, to help clarify who we are, why we are who we are, and we're on the right side of history here.
Look, I read your book closely, and it's not only because we're friends, but, folks, every line in this book, you're going to learn something. Every line is chock full of wisdom, and you go back to our founders and our framers and the great philosophers that inspired them. You said it is a society, meaning American society now is transitioning towards statism.
Right.
And if the conservative does not come to grips with the significance of this transformation, he will be devoured by it.
Right.
That's a frightening, chilling...
Well, we have some pseudo-conservatives out there saying just accept it and try and negotiate with it.
Yeah.
The problem
without preconditions.
Without preconditions. The problem is we need to embrace our principles. They're great things. And I'm not talking about a bunch of talking points. This is life and death stuff. This is liberty and tyranny stuff. Embrace what? A $53 trillion debt? that these entitlement programs have created? What, a $9 trillion new debt that's been created in the last 6 months? How do we negotiate with this? What's a half measure? $5 trillion? $6 trillion? No.
You know, I was with you. Mark did a book signing, folks, in Long Island this weekend. We threw a big book party for you. 6,000 people showed up.
Unbelievable.
The biggest crowd they've ever had. And they've had former presidents there, right. Okay? And there was one message that came across, and every person that I spoke to that was there, is they are furious. And you even wrote this in the book. You said Republicans seem clueless on how to slow and contain and reverse the statist agenda.
Right.
What do Republicans specifically themselves need to do? Because that's the only...
Republicans need to stop running from conservatism. I know it's hard because academia is leftist, the media is leftist, everywhere you look it's leftist, but guess what? Our founding principles are the right principles. And what I'm trying to say there, if you articulate them in an intelligent way and relate them to current events, we will succeed. There is no other way. There's a road to tyranny, and I believe we're headed on that road, a soft tyranny, and there's a road to reinvigorate liberty in this country and limited government, and we need to understand it. We need to it's not just to talk about liberty all the time. Why is liberty important? You know, things of that sort.
Yeah, and it goes in a great deal. You say the modern liberal believes in the supremacy of the state, and you say, you know, that's the classic meaning of liberal, but modern liberalism is statism. When you use the term statist, what specifically do you mean by that?
They're not liberals. They're not progressives. I understand the history of the progressive movement. They represent government, and they represent government against the people. They're constantly trashing groups of people in this country, the individual. They want to create a dispirited population. They want the population to surrender their liberties to the government. They want the population to rely on the government for all their needs and so forth. They want to create drones.
Yeah. Well, you talk. Yes, we can change.
Right.
We saw a little bit of that. I call it Obama mania. A lot of people don't seem to, and you deal with this right at the outset of the book. How do we define a conservative or conservative principles? And there are competing, I guess, factions within the conservative movement for the mantle of what is a conservative.
Right. Well, a lot of people seem to think that they're smarter than Madison and Jefferson and Franklin and Burke and Locke and Plato
true.
and Aristotle.
We know who they are, too.
Right. And they're not.
They're not.
And so I went back and looked at these men and really digested what they wrote. And what I present is what is a logical line, generation to generation, of why we conservatives want to uphold our traditions and our values and why they're worth fighting for.
All right. You talk about, though, that the statist is constant agitating for government action and how they have the support of the media. You go, look, we only have a few minutes on TV, that they have the media as their allies, but they're constantly agitating that it is a step-by-step process and that they're, in a sense, smart enough politically not to try and go for one big bite at the apple. Explain that.
It's a gradual, incremental action, although it's speeding up now under Obama, that's clear. On the media, when is the last time the media did a story on the greatness of capitalism? Look around you. Look at the greatness of liberty. Look at all the magnificent things liberty has given us. And I don't just mean material things. Look at the life we live as compared to other societies. Instead, all we get is this drumbeat, rich against poor, old against young. The media perpetuates this left-wing agenda.
Yeah, one of the great things, we'll get into this when we get back, you go through our founders and our framers, and you're a constitutional attorney, and you talk about that. You go back to our founding documents, the articles, the Constitution, the Declaration, and you quote these men at length, and you talk about free markets, so we'll get into that.
I try to tie them all together.
And coming up, we call him the Great One, Mark. By the way, write him and tell him, come on the program more often. It's like pulling teeth to get you here.
Some people call me the Great Big One. You got to be careful.
That's more than I want to know.
Yeah.
All right, we'll continue with the Great One.